The waiter was still pouring wine when the silence hit. Every fork in the restaurant paused midair. Mr. George Whitmore, billionaire real estate mogul, turned his head slowly toward the source of the interruption. Near the mahogany entrance of La Serrata, a private Manhattan club, stood a boy. Mud on his calves. A torn red t-shirt stuck to his skin like regret. No shoes. "I can heal your legs, for food," the boy said, voice steady. No one laughed. George blinked once, twice, gripping the armrest of his wheelchair. He hadn't stood in 3 years. Neurologists, surgeons, experimental stem cell trials, none helped. But something in that child's tone didn't ask for permission. It offered a deal. The manager stormed over, eyes blazing. "Who let this thing in here?" But George raised a hand. A small, shaking hand was already raised in return. A hush fell again. The boy didn't flinch. Didn't back down. He simply added, "Just let me touch your spine." And for a moment, just one, the richest man in the room forgot he couldn't walk. Elia didn't blink, even as the maitre d' shouted for security. His eyes, muddy brown and rimmed with dust, stayed locked on Mr. Whitmore. The billionaire shifted uncomfortably, jaw tightening. "I've seen 50 doctors," Whitmore growled, trying to laugh. "What makes you think you know anything about my legs?" Elia took a small step forward. "Because your right leg twitches when you're cold, your left foot turns inward when you lie. You haven't slept through the night since June 14th. And, you're afraid of elevators now." The room gasped. Mrs. Daltrey, a retired surgeon at the next table, narrowed her eyes. "That's impossible," she muttered. Whitmore's breath caught. His fingers curled over the armrest. "How do you know that?" "My mom, she used to work in a clinic. I read her notes. And I watched you limp on CNBC last week." He lowered his voice. "You never used to flinch during interviews. Now you do. Especially when someone claps behind you." Security approached from behind, 2 large men in navy blazers. The manager shouted, "He's just some street rat. Get him out." But Whitmore didn't move. "Wait," he said softly. His voice cracked, barely audible. "Sir, with all due respect. I said wait." Elia's small hands gripped the edge of a nearby chair. "Just let me try. If it doesn't work, I'll leave. You don't owe me anything." The waiter who'd been frozen nearby stepped back. His eyes had softened. Elia looked down for the first time, and whispered, "I just want one warm meal." Whitmore's voice was quiet. "Let him speak." The manager glared. "He's filthy." But the billionaire's response was sharp. "So is every kid who's ever been abandoned by men like me." And the room fell silent once more. They cleared a space in the center of the dining room. No one touched their food. No one looked away. George Whitmore sat rigid in his chair, eyes fixed on the boy now kneeling behind him. Elia placed his hand gently at the base of the man's spine. His touch wasn't cold or forceful. Just, still. "Close your eyes," Elia said. Whitmore hesitated, then obeyed. His breathing slowed. Elia's fingers moved in slow, circular patterns. Then they stopped. One thumb pressed against a cluster of nerves below the shoulder blade. A faint jolt. The billionaire's right foot twitched. "Whoa," someone whispered. A glass clinked on the floor. Again, Elia whispered. This time, his fingers danced, precise, firm. Then paused. The left knee jerked. Whitmore's breath hitched. "What are you doing?" "Waking up the parts they gave up on," Elia murmured. Behind them, one of the security guards stepped closer. "Sir, this is getting weird." But Whitmore raised one hand, trembling, yet certain. "Let him finish." And then it happened. A violent shudder ran through George Whitmore's torso. His hands gripped the arms of the wheelchair. His neck arched. And slowly, impossibly, his left foot pressed against the floor. Not a flinch. Not a twitch. A push. The entire room gasped as the chair slid back 2 inches. He was standing. Aaliyah stepped away, eyes downcast. "That's all I can do today," he said softly. Whitmore looked at his legs, then at the boy. His voice broke. "How?" But Aaliyah was already turning, reaching for the edge of the table, breathing hard, hands trembling. The billionaire whispered, "Wait. Please." And for the first time in 3 years, George Whitmore took a step. Aaliyah slumped into a corner booth, chest rising and falling fast. No one moved to stop him. Even the waitstaff stood frozen, hands over mouths, some with tears welling. George Whitmore remained standing, his hands barely gripping the edge of the table, legs shaking beneath the weight of a miracle. The billionaire's voice came low, almost hoarse. Who are you, really?" Aaliyah didn't lift his head. "Nobody. Don't lie to me now." "My mom worked in your clinic years ago," the boy said quietly. "Before she was fired for treating uninsured patients off the books. You never knew her name. But she knew yours." Whitmore's hands trembled. He sat down slowly, eyes wide, stunned. "What was her name?" "Janelle," Aaliyah said, eyes flicking upward for a moment. "Janelle Rivers." Whitmore paled. His lip parted. I remember her. I signed her dismissal papers." "She died last winter," Aaliyah said. "She couldn't afford her insulin. So I studied everything she left behind." A heavy silence settled. One of the guests stood and slowly clapped. Then another. Within seconds, the whole restaurant rose in a standing ovation, not for the billionaire, but for the barefoot boy in red. The manager, flushed and ashamed, took off his name badge and laid it quietly on the bar. And George Whitmore wept into his hands. Later that night, long after the guests had left, George Whitmore found Aaliyah curled up in the booth, fast asleep, his head resting on folded arms. He didn't wake him. He just sat across from him in silence, watching the rise and fall of a boy's breath, steady, certain, stronger than any treatment money had ever bought. The next morning, Whitmore made 2 calls. The first, to every medical foundation he'd ever donated to. "I want a pediatric neurology grant, in the name of Janelle Rivers." The second, to his lawyers. "Find this boy's guardianship records. If none exist, I want them written, with my name." By noon, he had a chef cook Aaliyah the finest lunch in the city: steak, potatoes, fresh fruit, warm bread. But when Aaliyah sat down, he only smiled shyly. "Can I share with others too?" he asked. "I know some kids nearby who'd do anything for this." Whitmore didn't answer. He stood, straight-backed now, walked to the center of the room, and nodded. "Then we'll build them a kitchen. And a school. And a home." Aaliyah looked at him, eyes wide. "Why?" Whitmore smiled through the sadness. "Because the boy who healed my legs, taught me how to stand up. Some people wait their whole lives for a miracle, others become one." Aaliyah didn't ask for pity. He asked for a chance to give. And in doing so, reminded us that dignity isn't bought, it's offered. If this story stirred something in you, take a moment to reflect, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stories that restore faith in humanity.